I Want to Jump Like Dee Dee, with me, Giles Sibbald, is the music podcast that does music a bit differently. I'm talking to some incredible musicians, DJs and producers about how they use an experimental mindset to fuel their own creativity, pursue new challenges, overcome fears, bounce back from mistakes. That post-punk era from, sort of 78 to 79 until the early mid-80s for me was totally fascinating. I mean, after sort of punk's initial and sort of short-lived blast had faded, there was kind of like a new guard taking over, and one that was meshing together these sort of fabulous sounds and influences and creating this really kind of exhilarating music, which for me was for those that are sort of like open-minded, for the outsiders, and for the curious. It's no surprise that the Bush Tetras would take their own place in history, and that they formed and created their art in New York City. They sounded and looked fantastic then, and they sound and look fantastic now. They were fusing soul, dub, funk, and dance with these sort of stabbing, biting, sliding guitars, pulsating drum and bass grooves, and the wonderfully poetic, unflappable vocals of my guest today. And you just need to listen to songs like Das Riot, Boom in the Night, and of course Too Many Creeps, and you'll hear the individual and collective influence around you in today's music. It's really, really timeless stuff. So I'm delighted to welcome Cynthia Sley to the show today. Cynthia, thank you so much for coming on, and welcome.
Thanks for having me. That was quite an introduction.
I hope I got it right. No, it was interesting.
Nice.
It was interesting actually because like I'm 50. I'm 54 now. I have to think every year. I have to think.
Yeah, after 50, whatever.
Yeah, it's whatever. And when I was sort of growing up, so kind of like at the end of the 80s, I was sort of 12 years old, and I was sort of been going into my record shops in my local stores, and I was really just like completely sort of grabbed with this. It was almost like this sort of other world of kind of bands like Killing Joke and Adam and the Ants and Susie and the Banshees. Those those sort of bands where and it was the artwork that was really kind of like dragging me in, and it was just so kind of like enticing. It was just it was just sort of so interesting for me. It just sort of felt like a different world, but it was like a world that I sort of wanted to be part of, if that makes sense.
Sure. Me too. That's how I felt.
That's how you felt, and that's how you.
Yeah.
You
It
kind of
wasn't
got
like
into
I was in other bands before. I just kind of fell into the scene when I moved to New York in '79. So.
Yeah. How did because originally you well, I say originally you were like really into kind of fashion and sort of fashion design. I'm really like
Yeah.
how did that sort of interest come about? From when you were growing up.
I don't know, like paper dolls. I don't know. And I grew up with Twiggy and lots of
Yeah.
really great '60s fashion, and I was always really, really into clothes. I was in. I had got a sewing machine really young. That was my big present. It was like really tiny,
Yeah.
and yeah, I always really liked that. But then when I started actually getting into it in New York City, which is like a fashion hub,
Yeah.
I saw how dark it really was. I wasn't really
Mm.
ambitious enough. It wasn't really tapping into that creative part of me that made me really want to keep doing it. I felt
Mm.
like the other outweighed it. It was a real male dominated business.
Mm.
I was really restricted and I had to do it a certain way. I hate rules. So it's like you
Mm.
had rules of how to start in the business. And I remember going to FIT, the school for fashion
Yeah.
here, very renowned school, and they weren't going to give me any credits for my art school.
Mm.
I had 3 years of art school, and I just kind of went, "Fuck that."
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
I was already punk in my attitude. I felt like, you know, I wasn't into it. I did clothes for Lydia Lunch.
Mm.
I designed short, skin tight clothes that the rest of the band just loved.
Yeah.
They just said, "Oh, we love being behind her seeing this. Thank you, Cynthia." And I designed clothes then for the band too.
Mm,
I made us, in my mind. I thought, oh, we should have like little striped outfits.
yeah.
I always liked that kind of thing where in like Motown, where everybody had like matching outfits. So that's how I started. I kind of morphed it into the band. They came to me and said, "Do you want to join?" And I said no a couple times, and I just gave in. They just wore me down.
They just wait.
They did. Yeah.
Wait, but I mean, before you, you said that you don't play by the rules, or you don't sort of abide by the rules. Where did that sort of come from as you were sort of growing up? Was this
Well,
just like just part of you?
yeah, I grew up in the Midwest,
Mm,
and it was very, conservative where
mm,
I was, and when I went to art school, and actually I went to France when I was 16. So it all
mm,
kind of opened things up for me. And I was an avid reader. I mean, that's kind of an understatement. That's all I did. I was
mm,
very bored. I felt very other than in Ohio, where I grew up. So I just
yeah.
got involved in books and drawing and art and
Wow.
museums. And I saw that there was this whole other world. So I was like, get me out of here. I really didn't like the restrictions. And even, going to art school, we were little punk girls, Laura and I, and
Mm,
we got a lot of flack on the street. We weren't,
mm,
it was just too much fighting against the norms. So that's why I was
mm,
so happy to come. Who knows what that is? You were saying that your father was really, like a socialist and brought you up with
mm,
those like
yeah.
values as a. It was similar in my house, although they did vote for Nixon. I remember that.
Mm,
But there was another side of like exposing me to art and different things and civil rights movement. My dad was pretty involved, and I was turned on to other things. So I made my choice. That seems like the righteous way to go. Like I just
yeah.
thought, yeah, there's a lot wrong with this system. So I started getting fight the system. I boycotted head lettuce and grapes when I was, you know, 14,
Yeah. And,
much to
and
my mother's embarrassment. That
I was gonna say actually because I it- about you, whether your parents sort of supported you in that. I mean, clearly your mother was a little bit
it was
embarrassed
the
at it, but
grocery store. It was the grocery store. All their friends saw me out there with my little red, green grape. What was it like? Green grapes and Cesar
yeah,
Chavez.
and you
Yeah,
sort of
she
getting
was
back
a
to your
little
mum. It's
embarrassed.
like, did you know who I've just seen?
Yeah, she's like, "Do you have to do that?" But they put up with a lot. I mean, if you raise kids in the late '60s, early '70s,
Mm,
so much was going down then. It
mm,
was a real disruption, and my parents, I kind of look back on them. It must have been really hard for them because we
mm,
were very rebellious, especially my older sisters who tended to go out more. I was too busy reading.
yeah.
You know, I read everything from Mein Kampf to Jean Genet. I was
Mm.
like, it was a lot.
So you're just kind of like devouring books and sort of
Yeah,
taking in the information and I guess that's the beauty of curiosity, isn't it? That you
yeah.
kind of take all this information in. I mean, I remember like when I was growing up, like I'm an only child, and um I kind of had this, like I was saying at the start about the going into these sort of record shops. I wanted to be sort of part of that world, but there was something stopping me, and I think it was my parents, because I was an only child. I always felt like the spotlight was sort of on me, so there were limits as to what I felt I could and should do, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, sure. Well, I was, the youngest and invisible. And plus I was kind of the good one that got good grades and read a lot. So
Yeah.
they were like, "Oh, we don't have to worry about this one." But I learned a lot in those books. Yeah, and the music was really important.
And it was the kind of the scene that that you were kind of involved with before you sort of moved to New York? I mean,
Hmm.
you know, like in, let's say, you know, in comparison to how it was in New York, but what was it? What was it like?
It was so exciting. It was, Devo and Perubu
Of course,
and
yeah, yeah.
Destroy All
Digital
Monsters,
Monsters, yeah.
really wacky bands. And
Mm,
it just left you, I mean, it was very, very exciting. We felt like we were really part of something. We went out a lot, saw a lot of bands, and there was really good radio. So
mm,
there was a little scene there in Cleveland.
mm. And then then obviously like in New York, I mean, I guess you know, you soon got into contact with the band members. I mean, you know, in terms of like the finding your people when you moved there, did you find that sort of quite easy to do?
Yeah, it was pretty miraculous, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I think as soon as I stepped into Manhattan, I've been there before with my parents and everything, but as soon as I came in 79, I think it was really, I came for the first time in 78.
Mm.
And I had a friend who was the boyfriend of my roommate. His name's Jim Jarmusch. He's a film
Yeah.
director.
Yeah.
So he turned me on to all these things, and I was lucky that way. So I already had him here, and then Laura had moved here already from
Mm.
Ohio, and
Mm.
she was a bass player, and she got involved with Pat. They were girlfriends,
Mm.
and I fell into an amazing, between the two of them. I have the same friends that I had all those years ago. It's kind of
Wow.
amazing. I'm really
It
lucky.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and amazing people. And some are not with us. A lot are not with us anymore. It was
Mm.
very tumultuous. There were a lot of drugs. There was AIDS. There was
Mm.
some not so great things going on. But the feeling here, I felt like I belonged. It was like immediately. So that was such a
Mm.
relief after being kind of other than and feeling like such a weirdo.
Yeah.
It was nice to be with fellow weirdos.
Fellow weirdos, yeah, you sort of find,
Hmm.
like you say, you know, you kind of find your people. It's interesting, isn't it, in those sort of times with those sort of massive, you know, kind of like world things going on. You know, like there's you know, in that sort of late 70s, early 80s, you have the, you know, kind
Hmm.
of like the Cold War going on. You got sort of, you know, sort of AIDS happening. You have you know, real, I guess, you know, that like in the UK, we had a, you know, very right wing government
Yeah, you
that
had Thatcher and we
you had
had
Thatcher.
Reagan, and we had
You had
Reagan.
Reagan, and
They should
they
have been
loved each
married.
other. Oh my
Yes,
god.
they did.
Oh my god.
I know.
And and you had this, you know, so like early 80s, there were sort of riots in most of the, you know, sort of UK cities against, you know, kind of police racism, you know, you know, kind of brutality and just just the, you know, classism that was sort of going on. But it did sort of feel like there was that it communities were stronger in a way. You know, they kind of found each other, and you know, maybe the same was happening
Oh yeah.
for
I
you there
mean,
as well.
yeah, absolutely. Here it was really strong community,
Mm,
and and we had strong tenants' rights associations. We kind
yeah.
of owned the city at that point because nobody wanted to live here because it was so run down and full
Mm,
of crime and filth and
mm,
you know, debauchery. So nobody
yeah.
was really moving here. That's changed
Mm,
completely,
yeah.
completely. Yeah, but yeah, so it made it more insular. We were all in it together,
Yeah.
and there was still money right before Reagan came. There was still money for the arts,
Mm.
but he put a kibosh on that one.
Or put it into the arts that he wants.
Yeah,
Nothing
or
that's gonna damage his seat of power.
yeah, I think he put it into that. What was it? Star Wars. That was brilliant, brilliant move. Yeah, but that's okay. He had Alzheimer's, and nobody really knew,
Yeah.
so he's got an excuse.
I mean, clearly, you know, you know, in my mind as well. You know, New York City of that sort of period, I think I probably romanticize it a lot, because my first love was the Ramones, and therefore after that I just loved everything about New York City. But clearly it was not an easy place to live, but also just, and I guess when you don't have that, you get creativity out of nothing. You just sort of learn to build it from nothing, I guess.
Yeah, because the possibilities were endless. There weren't
Mm,
any restrictions. If you didn't know how to play an instrument, didn't matter. You
mm,
just play. And I do feel like you were saying that the Ramones and the city. The thing with the city, though, I think it's really important. It's not for the weak
mm.
of heart. You have
Yeah,
you have to be scrappy.
yeah.
And I just lucked out that I was somehow innately scrappy because I was very naive when I came
Mm,
here. But I just, you just plow through, and that's what most
mm.
people do here. You, things happen.
Yeah.
Somebody gets shot on the train. You're gonna, okay, we'll wait for the next train. It's
Mm,
um, that was that's integral part of being here is you have to be pretty strong. You get
yeah.
kind of plowed over. And there's a lot of corruption. There's other things that have been endless here that aren't
Mm,
changing. They're not
mm,
changing,
mm.
but and they're not good. But they kind of reflect everything. Greed is a universal
Endemic,
greed.
isn't it? Yeah.
Hmm.
I was reading, in fact, I've just finished it. It's an old book, but it's David Byrne's book, The Bicycle Diaries. I don't know if you've read it. It's where he sort of goes
No.
around various sort of cities in the world. I mean, it's about
Oh yeah. Right.
ostensibly about kind of like how easy it is to ride a bicycle around sort of various cities, but also it's a bit of sort of commentary about what's going on in the city either sort of culturally, politically. But there was one part he was talking about, how residents of cities adopt the city's persona, or the city has its
Hmm.
own persona, and you start to adopt it. And you say, well, at what stage if you move to a city, at what stage do you then really have that city's persona in you? It's kind of
Yeah.
interesting how it works, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. It made me think of. I lived in Los Angeles for 3 years.
Mm,
So I've really basically went from Cleveland to New York and stayed in New York for 30 something years. And then
yeah.
I thought, oh, well, I'll just move to LA. I'll fit right in. I'll meet new people. It's like almost like I was naive again, like a 20-year-old moving. And I had the opposite experience. Like
Mm,
I saw how it worked. I just did not fit in. And I feel like sometimes you just don't have the right energy. I was
yeah.
so um I was so resigned to like make it work, and oh yeah, I could do
Mm,
it. It's no problem. And I really, really couldn't. I just kept
mm,
butting my head against the wall. Most people didn't really know who Bush Tetras were. I didn't really have any musical connections. And it was very isolating.
mm,
It's totally opposite from New York. I mean, totally opposite. But
yeah.
it works as a unit, it works. It's just you
Mm,
have to be a certain kind of person to live there that not.
that you were not.
I was not. So I like visiting. I realize I can visit. I love the flora and fauna. They're really beautiful.
Yeah.
But, yeah,
It's funny
can't
how
live
you sort
there.
of how you just sort of, catch a vibe of a city, sort of straight away. It's almost like this, well, I guess kind of gut instinct, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which, I have this kind of like I like gut instinct. I use it a lot, but also there's a part of me that wants to think things through as well. It's a sometimes a bit of a
Yeah,
weird dynamic. It's like your gut's telling you this. It's like, no, no, but then there's something that's holding you back from
right.
not
Well,
telling, not doing
I
what your
haven't
gut's telling
always,
you.
yeah, I haven't always had the best gut instincts, so it's got me in trouble. I'm very impetuous, so it has got me into trouble. But, I tend to, like, get through it. I'm lucky. hasn't killed me
Yeah.
yet. But yeah, I know. I loved London. I
Mm.
lived there. I'm friends with Hugo Burnham,
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah,
he
from
was
Gang of Four.
road. Yeah, he was road managing Shriekback at one point, and
Mm.
I stayed in his house for a couple months, and it was so interesting being there because it's
Mm.
so spread out.
Yeah.
And you get on the tube. I was in Elephant and Castle, and
Oh, yeah.
like some show was like really far away. You spend a lot of time commuting, but
Yes.
I still like I love the little community of Elephant and Castle. Like it's still retained like it's kind of little niches of
It
different
did.
worlds. I love that, and it's very old, and feels
When
great.
when when were you there?
Let's see, what year was that? 86. I
86 or
want to
so,
say.
okay. Yeah.
I could, yeah, I think around 86.
I think
Yeah,
my first trip down to London was, maybe a couple of years before that, around about 84 or something like that. But actually, I mean, I live, probably about 2 miles, about 2 miles away from Elephant and Castle. It's changed a lot. It's
yeah,
changing a lot now. You know, you remember that I don't know if you the very old shopping centre, as
yeah.
that's come down.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know, I know. There's all these kind of like landmarks that
Yeah.
it's funny, isn't it, that people, rail against, saying, there's nothing, it's a shithole, there's nothing there, blah blah. And then when it goes, it's like, oh God, I really miss it.
It was a landmark.
There's a
It's gone.
landmark. You can't do anything with
Yes.
it.
Well, it's like in New York City, places are it's they're just it's amazing. They try to get out of like these people building people are trying to go around all of the landmark rules. So they'll
Mm,
plow a building down before it can be landmarked. And beautiful old buildings, and they're not as old as London, but we're
yeah,
talking 19th century buildings. They're
absolutely.
so quick here to like plow them down. Or you go to Miami,
Mm,
and the oldest building is like 1920s.
yeah,
It's just so interesting here. What's old? What's termed old, and
yeah. Because it's
what
kind of
isn't?
well, I'm interested in what you think about the role of, sort of clubs and venues,
Mm.
for sort of creativity and, music. I mean, obviously, sort of both, New York and London have got a, sort of big history of incredible venues, a lot of which have closed. And I'm interested, what role they kind of played for you in sort of in that kind of creativity, and versus, how you see them now for, kind of younger musicians sort of starting out.
Oh my God. Well, when we started, I mean, mind you, we were a bit of a spectacle. So we got a crowd early because there were three, like some demented Clairol ad up front. Three women. I mean, not many bands, and we
Yeah.
were kind of dark and surly, a little
Mm,
scary. So we drew people, and we could play like twice in a month. We
yeah.
totally lived on the income that we made
Mm,
from gigs,
mm,
a nice income. That is not really possible now.
mm,
Not possible to play. Like we can't really play more than once every few months, and money's good for us. But I have a son who's 32, and he can't make a living off
yeah.
of the gigs and the DIY gigs. That
Mm,
there were plenty of them. Us coming up now are just dwindling out,
yeah.
and COVID did not help at all.
Mm,
COVID
mm,
really hurt New York deeply because it hit here really hard. It shut down for a while, and then now that it's coming back up, the DIYs aren't. Rent is skyrocketing,
yeah.
and I don't know where it's headed, but yeah, I think it's really joined together. If you can play out a lot
Yeah.
and you have clubs that like you and treat you well, then it really helps. I mean, you're playing out your songs, it's your craft. And the more you perform the songs, the better they are on vinyl or
Yeah.
whatever. Um, yeah,
I have some.
it's
Sorry, go on.
no, I was just gonna say it's changed completely.
Mm,
And I feel bad for and experimental music. My partner, he plays experimental music, and
mm,
the venues are gone for that. It's very
yeah.
limited. It's like the really big bands play the usual, and then the
Mm.
smaller bands are kind of like struggling below that.
I've got some friends who live in Austin, in Texas, and there's quite a big, um, sort of punk DIY scene there, particularly in the sort of black community as well. And they're sort of playing outdoors in kind of like under railway
Hmm.
tunnels, just kind of setting up. I guess there's this you know willingness to try things when your backs are against the wall as far as where to play, that venues won't, they're just not around, and the ones that are still around are just maybe a bit unwilling to sort of put you on.
Yeah, I think it's a testament of how persistent people are in their creativity. They
Yeah.
just you're going to do it. Yeah, my son played outside in the summer. I mean, now the weather's getting better, but we had not many good days in the winter to play outside. So
Mm,
they would get these traveling PA systems, with these huge batteries and schlep them outside.
yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
saw him perform at a place that was, they had to kind of kick all these Orthodox Jewish families that were saying prayers at sundown. And
Wow.
all these punks like come and bring their gear. And that was quite a mashup of cultures there.
Yeah.
To
Absolutely.
say, much to the horror of those people, they're like, "What is happening?" God. But
It's
it's great because yeah, it's I think you have to be really scrappy.
I mean, going back to you said, when you arrived in New York, maybe a little bit sort of naive, and but what you learned, in terms of your kind of mindset, from arriving there and sort of through your kind of career, what have been the real kind of standout things for you?
Um, well, I think one of the things, because we lost our drummer last year, and that I just think a standout thing is like kind of, going through the flow with life.
Yeah.
And our band has had so many ups and downs. So
Yeah.
I don't think I really knew I was going to move to New York to be in a band, but it happened pretty quickly. I moved to New York for adventures. I've had a lot of adventures.
Mm,
But I had a kid and I had to support the kid, so I had to find another career
yeah.
to be able to afford the kid.
Mm,
So I became a teacher, and
yeah.
that really was a really great experience. I have to say, overall, it was really a great experience. And
Mm,
that was fighting against my nature because talk about rules.
yeah.
You have to get up at the same time every morning. And I had to use a timer. And those are things that I loathe. I really loathe doing it. But having the relationship with the kids and seeing the curiosity in them and being
Mm,
able to kind of have some kind of effect, because I always wanted to have some kind of effect on people.
yeah.
That was really fulfilled in that. That was great.
Mm,
But it was only because I was able to be flexible.
yeah.
So if I hadn't been, I would have been a miserable person. But
Mm,
I'm happy that in my nature I could be flexible, and that was the biggest takeaway. And plus, just love, like the
mm,
community here and the family that I've my family that I've chosen here.
yeah.
Just
Yeah.
been, I mean, it's like incredible. And just seeing that how important kindness and having people in your life is,
Yeah.
it's pretty fundamental.
It
And
is
I'm
really.
lucky. I'm so blessed. I'm really blessed. Got a lot of friends.
I think it's really fantastic. What you were saying, that you've got many friends that you've kept through your life, and it's it's kind of a I'm going to say it's rare. I don't know. I don't know why I'm saying that. I feel that maybe I'm going from my own sort of experience. You know, it's. I find sometimes that people sort of drop in and out of your life. It's really easy not to keep in touch with people, isn't it? You
Yeah,
know, and to kind
I've
of
just
like drop
because
out.
absolutely. It's just I think because I've had so many different lives, and
Yeah,
through teaching, I made friends that I've kept,
yeah,
and um, and the music, and I think a lot of people in New York stayed in New York. I
mm.
mean, it was unusual that a lot of
Did
people have grown older here and have stayed. Because
did
where else are
the
you going to go?
yes,
I already tried
exactly.
LA. That didn't work.
That
I'm
didn't
not
work.
not going upstate with the ticks. I'm going to tell you, and no ocean. No, no, that can't happen. So, I think staying in one place, it's kind of amazing that so many people have stayed. I mean, I've lost people through death, through moving. Some people have moved away. A lot of people moved upstate, but
Yeah.
that's not that far away, and we stay in touch. And I visit them,
Mm.
wear a hazmat suit, keep
Yes.
off the ticks. No, I'm kidding. They know I'm kidding. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it up there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sometimes you know you accept that you're a city person, and that's kind of it. You know, and
yeah,
absolutely. You know, I guess it's there's always sort of this thing around, you know, that you sort of live in the city and then, you know, whatever. I guess it's like sort of societal norms and expectations sometimes, isn't it? That you know, sort of like have your fun in the city, then you sort of, you know, find a partner and then move out somewhere else and where it's kind of quieter and things like that.
and then you go down to Florida, and
Yeah, that's
then you die. Yep. Yeah, I don't think I'm going that route.
you're not going that route. No, absolutely
No,
not. No, no.
no, but it's like I understand it, and I understand you get tired too. I mean, the city's very hectic,
It's tiring.
and you
Yeah.
get tired, but I get away. I mean, I'm lucky. I love to travel, so I get away. But I
Mm,
like having my base here.
mm,
Base is good. I'm right now in the middle of Lower East Side, which is, it's like playpen for
yeah.
the young people. And then, there's this geezer. But I like to be around young people, and
Oh, totally.
they tolerate me. I don't call and say, call the police and say they're making a lot of noise next door or something. I like it. I stay up late. I can sleep in. I got earplugs. I kind of adapted, and and I still feel like I go to a lot of museums. I need that input
Mm,
from the
yeah.
city because
Yeah.
the culture is really important, and I think I wouldn't be happy if I went out to pasture, and no, I don't think so.
Without wanting to sort of spend too much time talking about COVID, but did that sort of period sort of change your view of the city, or did it just make you want to kind of you know, go out and sort of get back into the cultural life as soon as you could?
Yeah, I think it was a really, for me personally, COVID was great because
Mm,
I had just retired in 2019,
yeah,
and we were busy. We were really busy with the band, and it forced me to kind of just stop. I got off the hamster wheel, and I got to read. We got to write more music, and for
yeah,
me, it was nice. And being in the city, I wasn't in the city. I was out of the city from March till
mm,
June of
mm,
2020, and I was so happy to come back because, of course,
yeah,
I was in tick land taking care of my mom, and I was ready to come back. And although it was great spending time with her, that was beautiful
mm,
because she's passed away. So I got to spend like real quality time with her. So
yeah,
personally, it was kind of amazing,
mm,
and but I am very happy to play live again.
yeah,
I really miss that. But I think we learned how to write in a different way, Pat. Rebecca, RB,
Mm,
Corbett, and D and I. But D was, failing. So for
mm,
him, it was a disaster, COVID. So I
yeah.
had to watch that. So
Mm,
it was really double edged. I mean,
yeah.
a lot of people were suffering, and I
Mm,
was well aware of that. But personally, for me, I kind of liked it. Just be having the city quiet too. I
the
came
quiet.
back
Yeah.
and it was so quiet. It was really nice, and there were kind of more songbirds came.
Yeah.
Love birds, So
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, it was kind of special, and it almost felt like emptied out, like it was in '79, and there weren't as many people here at all.
Yeah.
But now
Yeah.
they're all back. They're all back.
It's kind of back to normal
They're all back.
normality relatively
Their
soon.
noisy selves.
With the crowd, sort of playing live now. I what sort of demographic is your crowd now? Is your audience? Are you getting a real kind of mix of kind of ages and
Yeah, we do. It's kind of
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's great.
I don't know. They seem to. I mean, I was just out the other day at an art opening, and somebody said, "Oh, yeah, she's singer in Bush Tetras," and the person said, "Oh my god!" I was like, I'm always shocked. Like,
What?
because he was younger. He was in his maybe 40. Yeah, I thought, oh my god, what the Bush Tetras? But yeah, it's always surprising to me that it kind of still has credibility, and and people enjoy the noise of it.
Yeah.
It was kind of different. I mean, at the time we were pulling things out of our hat
Mm,
because we didn't have any restrictions. So the music was really different. It's hard to
mm,
put in a niche. The way we looked was hard to put in a niche. So, we didn't get signed by a major label. But in retrospect, I almost feel that that might have been a good thing.
yeah. Do you know it's interesting you mentioned that because I think that there are so many artists now that are almost I'd say sort of learnt from that sort of approach and adopting very different influences into their music, and it's really I always think that sort of genres are kind of created perhaps by corporates because our kind of mind is the way that our minds work. We like to pigeonhole things, don't we? We find it easier
Yeah.
to sort of understand them, and then when you
Hmm.
get a band like the Bush Tetras, it's like, okay, where does that fit? It doesn't fit
Right.
anywhere naturally according to how those genres are kind of defined, and that's really what you did. Which so I think it's great to do because I think it makes people think. It makes people think more rather than thinking, okay, well they're a you know kind of hip hop artist or they're a kind of funk artist. It makes you think more. Okay, well, what does that music mean to me?
Right. And that's such a restrictive, small way of looking at things too when you're
Mm,
trying to put something in a niche. And I feel like
yeah,
it doesn't really capture there's four very diverse people coming together,
yeah,
and with all different influences, but there's this chemistry,
yeah,
and that chemistry you can't. I mean, who knows why chemistry happens? I have no clue. And it always made us see like we would pull songs out of the air. They would just come together and it was poof. And that's so magical. And it's hard to explain to people who don't make music. It's like,
yeah,
wow, how is that? And then they try to recreate it. It doesn't really work that way. Some songs we labor and labor and labor over and we write in different ways. But a lot of times we lucked out. They just kind of
mm,
came together. And that's what's so fun. And you can't really figure it out. And the less you think about it and overthink it, the better. Just do it.
when you get sort of four people sort of coming together and different personalities, different backgrounds, what did you how did you sort of personally sort of manage those kind of relationships, because it's hard to create the, like you say, to
Yeah.
sort of there's a chemistry which is almost just sort of natural that you can't put your finger on why it works, but it does. But kind of like, managing those sort of relationships and getting the best out of everybody is not
Yeah, it's
easy.
not easy. It's not
No.
easy, no. But, like the original band, we got along. We were such good friends. I mean, Pat is still one of my best friends.
Yeah.
And we hung around a lot together.
Mm.
And um, I think this new challenge of finding a new drummer, which was really, we thought, oh my God, Pat and I just thought, oh, I know we were in a panic
Where do we
because
start? Mm.
we had such chemistry with Dee,
Mm.
and he was a family member. He was a brother, really. He will always be a brother.
Yeah.
And we had gotten RB Corbett um, to play bass through Dee,
Yeah.
and that was working out really nicely. But it was like, is she going to work with the other drummer? They're the rhythm section, and
Mm.
we were not confident at all. Like he came in. Plus, I thought, oh, isn't he too busy? Because he's one busy boy, Steve.
Steve, yeah.
And it, I think the first few times it was a little felt weird, and Pat and I were like, oh my God, but
Mm.
it's once we slid into it and we're writing all that, we have 10 new songs and they're coming together with him finally, because when we were working on it with Dee, Pat and I had some songs that we've been trying to work on with Dee and Val forever that were our little ideas. Sometimes Pat and I come together and write songs, like Mick Jagger, Keith Richards style. We get a little
Yeah.
thing together. And it just all like came together with him. And
Mm.
he brings such a different edge with Sonic Youth and what he's
Mm.
done. And
Yeah.
it's transforming into something else. But as long as you kind of are open, it really has a lot to do with your attitude. If you're
Yeah.
open and go, yeah, and he's such a lovely person. He's
Yeah.
like the nicest guy. That
Yeah.
doesn't hurt. I
It
tell you,
doesn't
that
hurt at
does
all.
not
No.
hurt.
No.
No, and it's kind of, I feel like our communication's good. So I'm very hopeful about that. But no, it's not easy. I
Yeah.
mean, we have had our share of real aggravation, and there were drugs involved, and it's like,
Mm.
it's been really heartbreaking,
Yeah.
but amazing. I mean, I don't regret it, because life is hard and all that. Life is always hard, no matter what you do. But
Well, you do.
collaborating is a special kind of hard.
It's a special kind
Yeah.
of hard. Yeah. Yeah. It can go
Yes.
one of two ways, can't it?
Yes.
I mean, I guess that with Steve coming in, it's testament to your open minds. As difficult as it must have been, after D, but testament to your open minds that you Steve comes in and it's like, okay, well, let's see how this goes, rather than being kind of closed, which I guess
Right.
is easy after having, a relationship with Dee for so long. And, that again, that sort of persona that, becomes integral to the band, that
Right.
Steve comes in and you make it work. It's fantastic.
Right. And you're writing new material, which is
Yeah.
like if we were just doing the old ones and that was it. But we
Mm.
seem to, Pat and I always like to create new things, because we're both visual artists too.
Yeah.
So it's like you just want to keep the ideas going. And that's what
Yeah.
makes it exciting. And the rehearsals have been, we laugh all the time. How lucky is that?
That is amazing. I mean, that is incredible. That really is. I mean, is it when you're writing, um, sort of now when things don't kind of go to plan, or it's like okay, well, this isn't working. How do you kind of respond to that, or does it
Goes
work
in
all
the
the time?
trash can. Goes in the trash can. I mean, you just have to come up with something new. Yeah, sometimes like some of the old songs that we had, that Pat and I had, these like little kernels, we call them, like little kernels of corn.
Mm.
They weren't fitting. So you just kind of, you have to use your gut. You want it to have a sound,
Mm.
So we have, um, yeah, we have like about 11 that, and that's a lot. And I think this is the first time that we've been working on 11, well, 8 of them, you know, at the same
At
time.
the same time,
You feel
yeah.
like you have all these plates that you're juggling, all these plates in the air, and that gets a little harder at 65 because I just turned as a senior. But it's challenge. I feel like it's keeping those juices going, and
Yeah,
it's good. It keeps you young and vital, and I like it. But it's definitely a challenge
mm,
to work on so many songs at once. A challenge that we didn't really foresee.
yeah,
We're promoting that box set. We had a whole other plan with B, but this is the plan B,
yeah,
and we really do really really miss him. It's been, I don't want to you know pretend like it isn't. It hasn't been
yeah.
hard. It has been
No,
hard, but
absolutely.
it is nice to cry and laugh.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's a great, that's, I feel like a real gift to do both.
Do
Yeah.
you feel that you can, sort of take risks? That you feel comfortable sort of take. I mean, I know you've been taking them all your life.
Absolutely.
You've all
No,
your life.
no,
It's
more so now.
more
Just
so
wait till
now.
you hit 65. Who the fuck cares?
Who
Like,
cares?
I
Brilliant,
don't
brilliant.
care. Do not care. Like Pat and I, but we're both like, whatever serves the song, we just like do that. Like, yeah, we have some very, very wacky new songs. Like yeah, we haven't like straightened things out.
Oh,
But
fantastic.
yeah, because yeah, it gets more and more that way. Thank God. I mean, because worrying about what other people think is
Uh,
exhausting.
I totally.
Yeah.
I mean, that used to plague me. It used to plague me. It was
Yeah.
always on my mind, and it sapped your energy. And I
Yeah.
don't
And
know
it
what it was.
holds
Whether
you
you,
back. It really
yeah,
holds you
totally,
back because who knows what you can
totally.
do
Yeah,
if you don't care.
yeah.
It's
No,
very
no, I really don't
freeing.
care.
Yeah. It just
Well,
gets
I was.
better.
It's
Gonna
not.
say it just gets
Oh,
better.
brilliant! I've
Yeah.
got more of this to look forward to. No, it was. I'm not totally free of it, but I'm a whole lot. I mean, a ton better than I used to
Yeah.
be. Ton
Yeah.
better.
It's great, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's interesting when I started this podcast just over a year ago. I was like, oh, you know what people think. Nobody will want to talk to me, blah blah blah, and all the kind of self doubt and kind of
Yes.
fear and anxiety just and it's there's still a bit of it there, but now it's like we're sort of free of if I ask somebody, they're going to say no, and now quite honestly, it's like, okay, if they say no, then there's a reason for that, and
Yeah.
it's not against me.
Right.
Why should I
Yeah.
care about it?
Yeah. And music is so subjective.
Yeah,
If
it
somebody
is.
doesn't like it, well, they'll like something else. It's okay. I happen to be a person that likes many, many, many different kinds of music,
Yeah,
but I still get the subjective point of view. I get it. I mean, so that people get very, very like they like a certain thing,
yeah.
and but that's what I love having so many different kinds of things going on. And
Mm,
it's in the city. There's a ton of different kinds of music, and it's same as it was back then. Although there was a scene, when you think of all
mm,
the different bands, they didn't have a lot in common. I mean, we played with Eight Eyed Spy-a-Lot, but we didn't really sound like them. Or we played with Killing Joke, and we didn't sound like them. And
yeah,
but it all kind of made sense that
yeah.
everything was kind of fresh sounding.
Wow, that's incredible. It's an incredible. I'm just like sort of so excited to that this is all going on, and there's going to be new stuff kind of you're playing live and all this. I think it's just
I
phenomenal.
feel like a lucky duck. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I really feel lucky that I have Pat. I could get
Mm,
choked up easily. I do get
yeah.
choked up often. I'm a big mush. But Pat is, I can't believe I met her.
Yeah.
and we'll be in each other's lives forever, even when, go out there in the with our
I
walkers and
I
whatever.
I honestly think that that is something so, so special,
Yeah,
to have that. I think
yeah.
it's really, really special. It
I
doesn't come
haven't
across
been
a
as
lot.
lucky with my, soulmate, you know,
Yeah,
situation, but it's kind of like she's kind of probably my soulmate.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and and we're not gonna. Of course, we can't really do what we used to do, which is tour. We had some intense tours. We've
yeah.
slowed that down, but we are going to play festivals. We're going to play out live. We're playing out. We're doing a tour of the West Coast. I mean, it's 4
Wow.
dates. It's not like,
Yeah, yeah.
but for us, that's like a big tour, and we're really excited to play with
Totally,
them. I
totally,
know they're really fun, and it's like a fresh new start kind of thing, which
totally.
is fantastic. Yeah,
Cynthia, thank you so
thank
much.
you.
It's been absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, and it
It's a
wasn't
real
as
honor.
existential. See, I had like all these notes, and I didn't need any of them. I thought, oh, I gotta be deep, man. Deep, the COVID brain, what?
Thanks for listening to the show, and I really hope that you enjoyed it and that you'll tune in for the next episode. In the meantime, it would be really awesome if you could rate and review the show and also share it with any friends who you think might enjoy it.